Oops, there it goes. That's the automatic shut off. My life, from your perspective, some people would say this is horrible. I've told some friends what I do, and they go, that sounds horrible. You're never home. You don't have a life. You're sleeping in a vehicle, and you're working 12 hours a day, and you never know where you're going next. I mean, that sounds terrible, but I love it. I just absolutely love it. I've been doing it 12 years. You know, it's funny when people say, do you like what you do? Yeah, I've been doing it 12 years. It's like they asked me, why do you keep going back to Japan? You must like it. Yes, I've been there 5 times. I keep going back, and I want to go back again. I'm waiting for the COVID thing to clear up. But anyway, I'm just blabbing. I gotta get this show on the road, do this quick video. Hopefully this is Doug. I'm recording this on a 34-hour reset. What you're looking at is the dash of my T680 Kenworth and looking out. Here's what I'm going to attempt to do. This is going to be completely unrehearsed, raw, and as though you're maybe right here with me as I'm showing you, you know, my truck and talking about what you will have to learn if you decide to be a truck driver. Headset on. One of the things, if you decide to go over the road, you'll need a headset. Bluetooth, because we aren't allowed to hold the phone and talk while we're going down the highway. I believe it's about $2,500 fine. So believe it or not, that's one thing is required. Now I see truck drivers still to this day hold the phone up and talk like this because frankly it's hard to see because you know they're in a truck and they don't have a rear view mirror. But I'm just telling you up front, one of the investments you'll have to make right from the get-go is a headset of some kind, and they've ranged anywhere from $69 all the way up to a couple $100. This particular one I'm using right now has 2 headphones, which normally you don't want to use when you're going down the road, but I'm just using it today because obviously I'm not driving. I'm going to go through e-logs, this instrument here, and this is night transportation e-logs. If by chance you decide to drive a truck, there's any number of companies that you could decide to join that offer free training. I personally recommend, even though I started with another company, went through their training, CRST, and drove with them for 3 years actually, became a trainer. I personally, if I had to do it all over again, I would go with Squire and night transportation right off the bat, but that's your call. I'm gonna go walk through e-logs with you in a little while, but I want to step outside the vehicle. Also, I want to mention when I started, I had what's called paper logs. We didn't have e-logs. They were telling us that that's coming up because I started my truck driving career. So look out the windshield here. We're in Wheeler Ridge at a Petro. I started out in driving a truck about April of 2009. It's now July of 2021. So it's over 20. It was over 12 years ago that I started. So we started with paper logs. Also, the difference when I started that may be different for you depending on the company you go with. As far as I know, with night transportation and Squire, as a student that doesn't have any experience, you'll start with an automatic transmission, not a manual transmission. I started with a manual transmission. So there's 2 differences that I want to talk about my personal experience, but also talk about the present. Okay, with my personal experience, I started out with a manual transmission and paper logs. Now the benefit for me versus you, if you start with Squire or any other company that just has an automatic transmission, you will be certified to drive a truck and get your CDL, but you'll be certified only with an automatic transmission because I started prior to when the truck started shifting over to automatic transmission. I know how to drive a manual transmission because I did that, I believe it was the first, gosh, probably 7 years. I drove an automatic, a manual. This truck going by, you can see this long nose Kenworth. I would probably guess it's a manual transmission. So one of the questions you may ask if you want to learn how to use a manual transmission, you know, if you come on board and decide to go with Squire with night transportation, can you learn on a manual? To be honest with you, at this moment, I don't know because we're switching all of our trucks to automatic. That's a question I frankly can't answer. But I will say, personally, I'm glad that I know how to drive both. But if by chance you come on to Knight Transportation and you decide to go with Squire and Knight Transportation as your company of choice to both learn how to drive a truck and also start your career with Knight Transportation, frankly, it's not a major big deal, because frankly, I've been using an automatic transmission now probably for 4 years now, and it was an adjustment. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of old-time drivers, when the automatic first came around, and by the way, this is a Kenworth. I first drove a Volvo when I first got an automatic transmission. So I got in it, I'll never forget, the Knight Transportation, this was several years ago. They gave me a brand spanking new Volvo. Like, they gave me this truck when I got back from Japan, which is a Kenworth. It was brand new, okay? In fact, the Volvo they gave me didn't have license plates, didn't have a spare tire, and it was an automatic transmission, okay? It was the first time I drove one. I got in it, I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. It shifted, you know, just like an auto in your car. You know, it's about 5 miles an hour per gear, and I think it was a 10-speed. So after I got used to it, the bottom line is, as a student, if you come on to Knight Transportation, go through Squire, and they have automatic transmission, the benefit is it'll shorten your learning curve. It's less intimidating, because if you do learn on a manual, you gotta know how to shift, not grind the gears, the gear pattern, and you're learning all of that on top of watching the tractor and trailer and being in control of it and traffic and everything. I used to be a trainer and train students on a manual. It is really scary. It's really hard. It really is very difficult to do. You eventually learn how to do it, but the bottom line, if you were to decide, you watched my videos and the how-tos and everything, and decide for a variety of reasons, some of the reasons I will give you, to go ahead and go forward and talk to a recruiter with my company, with Knight Transportation, with the intent to go on to learn how to drive a truck through Squire, I just want to assure you, it's cool. It's not a major big deal that you haven't learned on a manual. I'm just happy I did, because if I need to drive a manual, I know how. But the bottom line, it really won't affect your career with Knight, because I think most of our trucks now are automatic. So you'll be able to drive a Kenworth, a Volvo, a Freightliner, any one of the number of trucks that we have with an automatic. It's just that, truthfully, I'm not going to go through all of this today, but what you'll find when you're brand new, that every truck, whether it's a Kenworth or a Volvo or a Freightliner, you know, or any number of models, we mostly have international. Right now we have international, Kenworth, Freightliner, and Volvo. Those are the 4 types of trucks we have. Now, every single one of them, one thing is you'll have to learn to do, preferably as a brand new driver, is to learn how each of those trucks work. Okay, I did. When I came over to Knight, I had driven with another company called CRST, and I primarily, in fact, I just drove nothing but not Volvos, but Freightliners and manual transmission. When I came over to Knight and I had to do a road test, or just a quick road test, I had been driving 3 years, so it wasn't a big deal. I actually drove a manual Volvo, and I told them right off the bat when I took my road test, I said, I feel more comfortable driving, but to tell you the truth, I've never driven a Volvo. And I'll tell you this one embarrassing thing, and I don't care how long this video is, Mike can chop it down and edit and everything. This is a true story. This is how funny. This is a funny true story. When I came over to Knight, I had been driving 3 years, and I took about a month break. I decided I wanted to come to Knight primarily because one of my co-drivers with the previous company, that was a team driver company. All right, let me tell you right up front, I do this a lot. I apologize. You'll notice on my videos, if you're watching up my videos, I'm not a professional actor. I'm not professional at this. I'll start talking about something and say I'm going to talk about this, and I go on another tangent. I don't talk about this. Okay, so I was just watching my video myself, and I said, let me tell you about an embarrassing thing that happened when I drove the Volvo. I didn't tell you, so I'm going to tell you now. I'm kind of splicing this in. This is a true story. You know, again, I was real comfortable. In fact, when I called Knight to tell them I wanted to work for them, they said, how much experience do you have? I said I was with CRST. I did over the road team for 3 years, no accidents, cleanly. They said, how soon do you want to start? They knew if I could do that, I could drive solo. But I came over, I took about a month off, and I was a little rusty. I took about a month off, and plus, in addition to that, as I mentioned, I had never driven a Volvo. So I get into the Volvo, and it's, manual. The manual transmission was actually the same as the Freightliner, but here's the embarrassing part I forgot to say, okay? I was doing the driving test, went out, we just really went around the block. A good instructor, somebody that takes you out, they just want to know that you're not going to go over a curb, and you're in control, and you know what you're doing. And they could take you, they don't have to take you out for 40 minutes or 30 minutes, or they can tell probably within 5 minutes that you know what you're doing, you're comfortable. So I did that with no problem at all. So we come back to the Knight terminal, and I have to do a backing test, where you just have to back into a slot, because because I've done it before, it wasn't a problem. I go through, that's something I didn't go, I watched this video, I didn't go through today, all the specifics with backing, which I can do in another video. When I'm not worried about clicking into drive, I'll talk about setup and looking for obstacles and some keys about backing that you'll need to learn. But anyway, the embarrassing thing happened. I was in this Volvo, and I had driven Freightliners before, and the Freightliners with TRST all had power mirrors, power windows, power everything. And for some reason, the Volvos back then, this was like 9 years ago, Volvos didn't have power windows, okay, with the buttons on the side. I have power windows on this Kenworth. Just so you're not visually trying to picture what I'm talking about. These are power windows. I have these power buttons. See, this is left, right mirror. This is the power window, just like you have in a car. See, where you move it up and down. And obviously, I have one for this side, because obviously I can't reach over and roll down the window when I'm driving. But what was embarrassing that day, I was backing up. The Volvo that I was driving had a power window for that side, but I couldn't find the power window for this side. So I opened the door, actually. I went like this. I went, this is kind of embarrassing, but how do I roll down the driver's side window? And he goes, oh, it's a manual. I had a manual crank over here. I didn't know that. And I'm like, oh. So I cracked up. Volvo, Knight didn't have, they had power windows all the way around, but they had a crank for the driver's side. Maybe it saved money. So that was the embarrassing thing for me, doing my road test. And I just didn't know that, because I didn't think to look. I'm looking for the buttons. I didn't think about the obvious thing that there was a crank here. So that's the thing I forgot to say. Because it's starting to get warm here. And again, I'm just speaking from the heart, as though I'm having a real heart-to-heart conversation with you. I don't like, the one thing I've got to ask about, whenever I start my Kenworth up, this weather thing comes on. And there must be a thing I can adjust that doesn't come on when I start the truck. It's kind of annoying, but that's a side thing. When I came over tonight, I had driven with CRST, got all my training there. I had 3 years experience, done teams over the road. So I was definitely qualified to come to Knight. And one of my co-drivers that I drove with recommended I come to Knight. It was first company I left CRST to come to Knight, and I've been here ever since, about 9 years. Now, some drivers, to be honest with you, will go from company to company trying to find a good fit, okay? I came over tonight, and right from the very beginning to today, I felt really good here and comfortable. That's why I haven't switched companies. And that's why I can honestly recommend Knight to any brand new driver with complete authenticity, integrity, and really feel like I'm making a good recommendation. But I will say, everybody has their own experience, okay? But anyway, back to getting started. Okay, the intention of this video, I want to just give you, if you're brand new, like when I got started, I actually drove a truck way back 30 years ago. But when I got started driving a truck in 2009, I didn't have my CDL. I was just like maybe you. If you're brand new and you don't have any experience and you're kind of thinking about going over the road for a variety of reasons, regardless of what the reasons are, I was in the same boat. I actually was 55 years old. I left Denver, Colorado after living there 18 years, and I hit rock bottom personally. And my mom was the one that said, you ought to consider driving a truck, and I considered all the things for my particular situation. And here's the deal. I really feel like if enough people come to my site, I'm just making this up, just round numbers, let's say 10,000 people came to my site over time, regardless of how long that is, I guess I would be kind of surprised if it wasn't true, that at least 300 or 400 or 500 people, for a variety of reasons, were in a similar position that I was in, either unemployed, got laid off, hit rock bottom, went through some difficulties, and they thought, well, maybe I'll drive a truck, maybe that's a good solution. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I went through a recruiter I found online. I didn't even know about Knight Transportation. I didn't know about all the other companies. I was just in a position where I personally ended up just coming across a CRST recruiter. And I'm sure it's true for Knight, Squire, or any company you go check out. They basically, one of the questions you may have is, okay, if I'm curious about truck driving, or I've decided I want to do this, what are the qualifications, for me to even have a chance to get trained by a company, whether it's Squire with Knight or CRST or CR England or whomever. Number one, all they wanted to do was to know that you had a verifiable employment history. They just want to know that you could basically hold down a job. Now, I'll be honest with you and transparent. I drove a limo and a taxi in Denver. I was a massage therapist. I had made good money there, and also I had a rich history. But in the last employment I had, and I have this on video and stuff, the last employment technically I had was washing dishes for $8 an hour at Takis Restaurant. That was the last verifiable employment. They wanted your last verifiable employment, not something from 10 years ago. So that's what I use. So it doesn't even matter if you're a dishwasher or whatever, janitor or whatever, as long as you confirm that you have verifiable employment and you can hold a job. That's number one. Number two, they just want to check out your criminal history. They do some type of background check to make sure you have a clean police record and all of that. That's number two. It's pretty simple. Number three, your driving record. Obviously, if you're driving a truck, they want to know that you don't have a DUI or reckless driving or something like that, because they want to know that you're safe. Okay, so those are the three basic things. And then you have to have some references and stuff. So the point is, the qualifications are quite simple. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Then I'm not sure how it is with Squire. I'm sure it's really similar, but with me, they said you've passed all of those things, so you're qualified to go to advanced truck driving school, which is the truck driving school that CRST contracted with. I'm just telling you right up front, that's an option for you, because I want to be totally authentic. I want the best for you. If you decide it's not Squire or Knight, there's other things out there, and you want me to check out. If you're really proactive, you'll find out all these things anyway, because it's all there in Google. And in fact, check it all out yourself. Don't take my word for it. But with me, I didn't check anything else out. It all seemed like, wow, I didn't have money. I was living with my parents. I hit rock bottom. I'm like, okay, if I can go to advanced truck driving school, how does that work? I'm ready. I'm qualified. They said, basically, you have to go through the school and pass. Then you go to CRST orientation and pass. And then you have to go out with a trainer for 30 days and pass. And then you're qualified to go out and you start earning money. So I had this kind of, okay, these are the things I have to pass so I can start making money as a truck driver. And it only took about 45 days. And all the schools, CR England and Squire, they're all modeled very similar. And I can double check with Squire and find out what the qualifications are and everything. But I'm just telling you from my experience. But the point is, regardless of who you go with, you have to start out as an applicant. You have to go through those steps. You have to go through a recruiter. I'm suggesting you go through me, and then I talk to a recruiter and bring you to a recruiter, but I help you through the process of deciding whether you want to do this, because I'm a driver, not simply a recruiter, and I can answer all the questions you have about what it's like out here. And a recruiter can do that to a certain degree, but they're not a driver, okay? So if you go through me, if you decide to go with Knight and Squire, and that's what I recommend, I'll tell you why in a minute. I want to basically take you by the hand and through these videos I make and stuff, as though I'm mentoring you, okay? So the bottom line is you have to go through the recruiting process, okay? Then you have to go through the training process. Now, to be honest with you, one of the reasons why I recommend Squire with Knight is I think personally Knight is a better company, okay? Also, I'll just be right up front with you, because I went with CRST, I drove about 300,000 team miles. When I came to Knight, that didn't apply to my 1,000,000 miles because it was with another company. So if you come to Squire and you get your training and you get into a truck and you start your career with Knight and you're a driver with Knight, all of the miles you have from the very beginning all go towards your 1,000,000 miles with Knight, okay? Whereas if you go with any other company and you come over to Knight after you're trained and everything, you have to start all over again. That may not seem like a big deal, but for example, I'm probably right out about 900,000 miles, paid miles, between my CRST miles and my Knight miles. But because that CRST 300,000, I'm only at about 600,000, so it means I have to drive approximately 4 more years to get my 1,000,000. And when I hit my 1,000,000 miles, Knight I think they pay you about a $4,000 check. Okay, so I'm just being upfront with you. So these are kind of some of the things I can discuss with you. But anyway, with my training, and that's why I want to walk through some things today. So a little longer video, but I want to walk through some things today because I didn't have someone walk through these things with me. Okay, I just said, okay, I'll go to advanced truck driving school. I'll just go for it. My dad gave me a ride down to the school. I checked into a hotel. They set us up for 2 weeks. I had no idea what I was getting involved in, other than I was going to learn to drive a truck and get my CDL. And advanced truck driving school, you can get your CDL and you can go through orientation and you can get in a truck. But to be honest with you, I'll walk you through just real quick. I'm 100% Squire's going to give you a better training and more thorough, and with the trainers and so on and so forth. With advanced truck driving school, basically it was only 10 days. The first 5 days you basically got there. There was about 25 other students. The first few days, the whole purpose of the first few days was to get your driver's permit, which required you to take tests at the DMV and advanced truck driving school. What they would do, they had you study the actual test on air brakes and the various things that you have to learn and pass. They even had the highlighted correct answers in yellow. So the point is, you memorized the DMV tests that you had to go down to DMV and take to get your driver's permit. That was the whole focus. Okay. So the first 5 days was just preparing for the second 5 days, and then you had your CDL. It was really fast. Okay. So I got my permit. I finished my 5 days. We had a weekend off, and I came back to 5 in the second week before I went on to CRST. And believe it or not, they had two schedules. You either went out and drove the truck with some other people in the morning, and you came back at the school and did backing in the afternoon, or vice versa. I ended up doing backing in the morning, which means we just were in a parking lot. I'll show you. This is a... And then I'm gonna go outside. by the way, so you get another look. I'm going to show you the truck. I just washed it, and I happen to have a new trailer. I washed my truck, and I apologize, it's a little loud. I have my headset, plus the truck is running. Okay, back to the second phase. The second week, and probably Squire is some similar, but probably a little better, I would assume. I will check into it for sure. But if you can imagine, as we're looking at my T680, it's been washed. It looks really clean. It looks really nice. This is my truck that I've had with Knight. They gave me a brand new truck when I got back from being in Japan for 2 months. It's another reason I stay with Knight, is the flexibility and how they treat you. But anyway, if you can imagine, when I got to the driving part of the school, we did backing in the morning, and then we went out in our truck. It was a Freightliner, not a Kenworth. And plus, there was older equipment because it was a truck driving school. It wasn't a trucking company. And we drove around Ontario Airport. Not on the highways, not over Grapevine, just basically drove through the gears because we were learning how to drive a manual transmission, how to turn, how to, make corners without hitting the curb or hitting a signal light. So basically I was behind the wheel a grand total of an hour and a half and 5 days before I took my CDL test at Advanced Truck Driving School, passed it, and got my CDL. But I had not even hooked up a trailer. I had not fueled. I didn't even know how to fuel. I didn't know how to hook up a trailer. I had not been a shipper. I hadn't been to a consignee. I basically didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. But I had a CDL so I could legally, I had a driver's permit so I could learn, but I had a CDL so I could legally go out with a trainer, even though I didn't know what I was doing. You understand? At Blue Beacon, so it looks really clean, like it's a new engine, because I like to do that. But I'm not going to go through the whole pre-trip, okay? But one of the things you'll learn, regardless of whether you go a Squire or CRST or whomever, is you're going to have to learn how to do a pre-trip, okay? And a pre-trip is something that you have to do every time you start your shift. And what I personally recommend, frankly, you could go to YouTube and just type in how to do a pre-trip, and there's lots of videos, and it's the same standard pre-trip. There's the same sequence and all the things you have to learn in truck driving school to pass. You have to learn how to do an effective pre-trip, okay? Now, just basic stuff. You're basically just visually looking at the engine, the motor, and I'm not going to go through all the things. In school, you'll have to literally go boom, 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 go through point by point by point by point by point by point by point. And it's, to be honest with you, most drivers do not go through every single point. I think there's 100-something points that you do. Some do. But the main thing is you're looking at your motor, your engine, and you're looking at just clamps, all these different clamps. You're looking at everything. The hoses aren't supposed to be cracked or brittle or everything. You're just kind of visually checking things out and not just getting in the truck and driving off. You're looking at the tires, steer tires. You're looking at the nuts. You're just visually going over everything. And typically, I personally take about 15 minutes to do a pre-trip. And other drivers might take an hour or 30 minutes or 40 minutes. I take about 15 minutes. Because the other thing is, we have regular A and B service, okay? And you can look down for any leaky fluid, just real basic stuff. But if you want a thorough pre-trip, just go to YouTube and type in how to do a thorough pre-trip, and you'll see exactly what you'll have to learn point by point to pass your test. That's after I looked at the motor and everything seems cool. Again, this is exactly what they'll do. They'll ask you to open your hood when you're doing the level 1 inspection. It's going, so it may be a little hard to hear. But even at the weigh station, they don't put a tire gauge on everything. See, this is a thumper. They'll just thump the tires. They'll go around and they'll literally, I have a thumper in my right hand, my left hand rather. I'm right-handed, so it's a little awkward. But they basically just thump the tires and check out the nuts and they just kind of visually look at things.